On the 28th of January 2017, a 20-year-old girl goes missing. And to this day, she has not been seen since. This is a story of Elaine Park. So just before I dive into this case, I just want to say hi, welcome. If you are a new subscriber, if you are a current subscriber, just welcome. So just before I delve into this case, I'm just going to give my standard intro and just say, hi guys, my name is Shannon. If you're new to my channel, I speak about a true crime case every single week that has inspired me to speak out and share with you all. This month it's going to be a little bit different. I am going to be speaking about missing persons cases, and I'm not going to be uploading on a specific day like I do with my Toxic Crime Tuesday series. It's going to be maybe once, hopefully I'm hoping for twice a week throughout the duration of March. And yes, I'm going to be focusing on missing persons cases because these cases are detrimental to keep these people's names alive and try to get these cases solved, try to get these people found in whichever way we can. And that's exactly why I want to use this platform to do so. So if you are interested in true crime content, and if like me you're a desktop detective, then please consider subscribing to my channel and maybe turn your notifications button on so that you are notified every time I upload a video. So without further ado, let's dive in. So this case we focus in America, specifically in Glendale, California, and Calabasas, California. So in America, over 600,000 people go missing every single year. And in the UK, it's 250,000 people go missing every single year, which are both huge numbers. And it's just so bizarre that a lot of these people can go missing without a trace and never to be seen again, and this case is no different. So what you may find with missing persons cases, there isn't an awful lot of information. I don't know an awful lot about Elaine, who I will be speaking about today. So this video probably isn't going to be as long as my standard videos, and obviously it is an ongoing unsolved case, so I'm going to do my best to do as much justice as I can and try to get Elaine's name out there, because her case hasn't got as much coverage as what it should. In the description box below, I will be giving all of the relevant information, all of the relevant phone numbers that you can contact if you know any kind of information that you would deem important to Elaine's case. Obviously, I'm from the UK and this case is in America, but I do know that I do have a lot of American subscribers. Not a lot. I'm giving myself too much of an ego boost there, I think. Oh, just before I get any further as well, I just want to address the elephant in the room, which is my hair. You will probably notice that it looks horrendous and it looks very different to what it previously did. Normally I wear hair extensions, but my hair extensions are a lot darker than my hair because I'm in the process of lightening it. I have lightened it a couple of times now and it is starting to go a little bit damaged, and I don't want to keep doing it because otherwise my hair is just going to completely fall out, and that's happened before. So I want to be really careful this time, and I'm just gonna deal with this colour for a little bit longer and try to do lots of different treatments in hopes that it'll get back to a better condition, and then I'm going to ruin it some more and take it back to blonde, hopefully, because that is my natural colour. I changed my hair far too much. I did really like the green, but I just find that it doesn't really suit my colouring. I think because I've got cool tone skin and my hair colour was cool tone, it just doesn't really suit it. So I'm going to go back to a warmer tone, I think, and hopefully it will look better than this. But I didn't actually realise how ginger and yellow my hair is here until the ring light has just enhanced it tenfold and it looks absolutely horrendous. So I I apologise if you are watching this video and you have to endure my horrendous hair. So I'm really sorry for that. And anyways, I'm going to stop talking about my hair and we're going to get back into the case because my hair is irrelevant. So Elaine Park was 20 years old when she went missing, and on January the 27th, 2017, Elaine went to visit her ex-boyfriend. Now, they were described to have a very on and off again relationship, but they weren't actually together at this point, but I'm presuming that they were trying to get back together. So she drove to his house in Calabasas, and he lived in a very nice, expensive area, and it was pretty remote, and he lived like in a gated complex, so it was very safe, had lots of security, it was a safe gated complex. Elaine drove her Honda Accord to her ex-boyfriend's home, and she arrived at his house, and then they got an Uber to the movies and they went to watch a film. I'm not too sure what the film was. And they got an Uber back, and I think they arrived home at about 1 a.m. And shortly after they got home, they went to sleep. And then on January 28th at 4 a.m, Elaine woke up very abruptly, and her ex-boyfriend claimed that Elaine was very panicky. She seemed to be having a panic attack, and then she kind of gathered her stuff up and decided to leave. And her ex-boyfriend said to her, like, look, why don't you stay a bit longer? But she said no, she didn't want to. She just wanted to go home. Her ex-boyfriend said that Elaine had left at 6:05. However, on the security surveillance, it did actually say that it was 7:05, which that could just be a timing issue, because when the times changed, maybe the surveillance didn't change, so it was an hour ahead, which that can happen, so that might have just been the case. I just thought that was important just to know and keep that in mind. But if Elaine had woke up and was having a panic attack and then left abruptly, I wouldn't call 2 hours abruptly. If you were feeling very panicky, and I don't want to, people react to things very, very differently, and whether you're, a lot of people do suffer with panic attacks, and they may react to them quite differently, and they may behave differently. Just for me personally, when I've had a panic attack and I felt like I needed to get out of that situation, I would just get up and go instantly. Within a matter of minutes, and I think a lot of people would. So to leave in 2 hours, I just kind of thought that was a little bit strange. And Elaine went to go to her car, but then when you see on the surveillance footage, you see another car close by, and you see Elaine by her car, but you don't actually see her get in. You don't see whether she gets into the front seat or gets into the passenger seat, and then you see the car drive away, but you don't actually see who is driving. Now, I will try to put the surveillance footage in, or I will just link it in my description box. So then the car drives away, and then Elaine is never to be seen or heard from again. During that day, Elaine's mother tried to contact Elaine multiple times, and Elaine and her mother had quite an estranged relationship. Elaine's parents had recently divorced, and Elaine took that very, very hard. Divorce can be really hard on any person, but it must be difficult when you've grown up with your parents together all of your life. She was 20 years old, so to grow up as an adult with your parents always being together and then splitting up, that must have been very tough, because that's all she's ever known. All she has ever known is her parents being together, and then to have to adjust to them being apart. I can imagine that it did take its toll on her mental health. So Elaine and her mother had quite a rocky relationship, and they never really had a very strong mother-daughter relationship. And Elaine's mother actually said that Elaine would often criticise their relationship, and she would often feel sad that she wasn't close to her mother the way that her friends were close to their mothers. And Elaine's mother would always feel guilty about this, but sometimes that can just happen. It's really sad, but sometimes, you're either so much like this particular parent, and that's why you don't get along as well, because you just clash, or you're completely different and that's why you don't get along. Like me and my mother, when I was younger, when I was a teenager, we didn't get along at all, because we are very similar. And although now we've grown up, and especially me, like I've really mellowed. I used to be a lot more temperamental and very impulsive, whereas now I am a hell of a lot more chill, and she's a lot more chill as well. And we do get along so well now. We are like best friends. Whereas when I was growing up, we used to argue all of the time, and sometimes mother-daughter relationships can very much be like that. But one thing that Elaine's mother always instilled into Elaine is that no matter what happens, no matter how many arguments they have, if they are apart, if Elaine is out anywhere, she will always have to tell her mother where she is and what she's doing. And that is exactly what Elaine would always do. So when Elaine wasn't replying to her mother and she wasn't answering her calls, Elaine's mother did get very, very worried, understandably. So she did call the police, especially when Elaine did not return home that evening. She rang the police and she was told to wait another day. So Elaine's mother didn't end up reporting her daughter missing until January the 30th, 2 days after Elaine went missing. When I've looked up when I've researched cases and stuff, that's actually not a thing to have to wait. You do not need to wait a certain amount of time to report someone missing. I think police try to encourage you not to, because obviously I get it in a sense, because police don't understand your relationship with that person, and they can just presume like you're worrying over nothing, or you're just overreacting, and that person's just stormed out and they've gone for a couple of hours and you've rang the police because you're panicking and you're worried. But obviously that generally is not the case. When especially parents, when they phone the police to report their children missing, that's because they know their child, even if they're a grown adult, it's because they know the person that they are, and they know what kind of behaviour is usual and unusual for them. So if that person isn't replying when they are generally always replying to their parent, or always answering their phone, or they're at home at a specific time and they're not, or they haven't turned up at work that day, that parent is going to know that that is unusual behaviour, and they are well within their rights to ring the police and report their child missing. And there is no law against reporting your child missing as soon as you notice. There is no law that says that you have to wait a certain amount of time. It's just encouraged, which it shouldn't be, really, because I really don't think people would just report someone missing just for the sake of it, or just to waste police's time. I'm sure there has been a rare occasion where someone has done something ridiculous like that, and it is always the minority that ruins certain situations or gives certain situations or people a bad name, but generally it just doesn't happen. So as Elaine's ex-boyfriend was obviously the last person to see Elaine, he was spoken with, but he was spoken with pretty briefly. Elaine's mother was pretty angry with the way that the police dealt with the situation, which were the Glendale Police Department. She felt like they just didn't take the whole situation very seriously. They just felt like, oh, she's 20, she can do what she wants, she's probably just a runaway, or she's just going to go out and have a breather for a couple of days and then she'll come home. But obviously her mother knew that that was not the case, and that if her daughter wasn't turning up when she was supposed to, then she knew that there was something severely wrong. And she felt like her ex-boyfriend did have something to do with it. And one thing to note as well is that Elaine's ex-boyfriend, his father, was a very prolific business owner, specifically in Hollywood. He had a lot of money and probably knew a lot of important people as well. Maybe in law enforcement. Who knows? I'm just speculating. So the police actually didn't even search Elaine's ex-boyfriend's home, didn't search his car, didn't really even interrogate him at all. He just gave the story that I told you previously, that Elaine left at 6:05 and she'd woken up at 4 a.m. having a panic attack, and then that was it. And police were just like, okay, that's cool, thanks, bye. And that was it. They didn't take it any further with the ex-boyfriend, which Elaine's mother understandably was not very happy with. Generally, the last person to be seen with a victim, a person that has gone missing, is normally named as a person of interest or a suspect, because they are the last person to have seen them alive or just seen them before they went missing. So generally they would be interrogated a lot more further, and they would at least have their property searched, but this is not what happened in this case. And then just 5 days later, on February the 2nd, 2017, Elaine's grey 4-door Honda Accord was discovered. It was just left abandoned along the Pacific Coast Highway, and inside, the doors were unlocked, the key was in the ignition, and all of Elaine's belongings were inside, which, upon hearing this, Elaine's mother just knew something bad had happened, because she knew that if her daughter was going to run away or she was just going to disappear for a few days, one, she probably wouldn't have left her car. She certainly wouldn't have just left the key in the ignition. She wouldn't have left it unlocked, and she certainly wouldn't have left her backpack, her keys, her laptop, her phone, her purse, all of her important essential belongings she would not have left behind. And obviously Elaine's mother, she's her mum, she knows this. She knows her daughter inside and out, so she knows what her daughter would do in pretty much any situation. So it did seem very odd to her, and she definitely felt like foul play must have happened. After finding Elaine's car abandoned, police brought in dogs to come and search the area. However, they just could not pick up a scent. Sometimes this could be if the paths had been contaminated or crossed with maybe another animal, which along a highway, of course, it could have been. So it was just to no avail. They also brought divers in to search the area, to search all of the surrounding waters, and they come up short once again. They couldn't find any sign of Elaine. And all around the Malibu cliffs, police had searched and scoured the areas, and they couldn't find any sign of Elaine anywhere. So because Elaine's ex-boyfriend was allegedly very cooperative with the police, he was willing to talk to them, and he just seemed very forthcoming, even though they only interviewed him once. Because of this, they felt like he was not a person of interest. He could not have been a suspect because he was so cooperative. And not long after Elaine disappeared, a $500,000 reward was issued in order to encourage people to come through with any kind of information. And this reward was going to continue until Elaine's 21st birthday. This was to help generate new leads, but unfortunately no leads came. No one had seen Elaine anywhere. No one had found anything of her, which just makes this whole case just so much more strange and interesting and just mysterious, because it's just like, where is she? Where did she go? Like, there was just no, other than her car being abandoned, there was just literally no trace of her, and to this day she hasn't been seen since. So now we're just going to get, because that is pretty much all I have for you. I'm going to, towards the end of the case, and I will actually put in the description box below as well, I will go through Elaine's appearance so that you know who to look out for. But obviously you can also look up this case, you can see what she looks like, but I will be giving her description towards the end. So now I'm just going to get into the theories. So there are two major theories within this case, which I'm sure one of them you probably already think, yep, that's what happened. But there is also another huge theory that a lot of people actually do believe happened. I don't, but we'll get into this in a minute. So the first theory is suicide, that Elaine committed suicide. One of the main reasons, well, actually there's a few reasons being, but Elaine was going through a very tough time. Her mental health seemed to have deteriorated quite a lot leading up to her disappearance. Like I mentioned before, Elaine's parents recently divorced, which, as anyone can imagine, it obviously really did deeply affect Elaine. Elaine had also recently lost her job, and she had quit school a semester prior to her disappearance as well. And like I said as well, she had a very on and off again relationship with her boyfriend. And it is said that Elaine just started to become very withdrawn, and she started to have panic attacks quite regularly, which, you know, if you add up all of that Elaine was going through prior to her disappearance, it would affect anyone's mental state. Even if it was just one of those issues, that would affect someone's mental health state. But when you have all of them in such a short period of time just mounting up on top of each other, of course it can affect your mental health state dramatically. And a lot of people do believe that she committed suicide, and there is a reason. I don't, but when I've researched this case, people that have said that they don't feel like Elaine committed suicide, which is just for a really silly reason, and it's that she didn't look distressed or upset in the surveillance footage, which I just find the most ridiculous statement ever. Like, if you've ever had suicidal thoughts, and if you've ever attempted to commit suicide, which I really hope none of you have, you can look fine and behave fine, and you can feel fine for a second. You can feel fine, and then 5 minutes later, all of the feelings, all of the negativity, the numbness, the emptiness can just overwhelm you again. And you just feel like you can't cope with those feelings anymore, and you feel like you're drowning, and you just can't deal with it anymore. And you feel like the only way that you can get rid of those feelings is to commit suicide. Obviously I haven't committed suicide because I'm still here. I'm a ghost. I've attempted to commit suicide before, years ago now, and I'm very lucky. I'm still here, and it's amazing, and I'm not sorry that happened, because now I have such a more positive outlook on life, because I look back at how I felt then, and I try to do everything I can to ensure that never happens again. Although it wasn't my fault for that happening, mental health illnesses do not discriminate. It doesn't matter where you come from, what kind of money you have, who you are, what gender you are. Depression can affect anyone. And it can just latch onto you at the most unsuspecting time as well, or when you're at your most vulnerable. And it can be a really tough situation to come out of. And sometimes you do feel like suicide is your only way out. And that is how I felt. I felt like I just couldn't. I was at the bottom of like a well, and I just couldn't climb out of it, because I just had all of these feelings, all of this negativity just being thrown on top of me, and I was just suffocating, and I was so overwhelmed by all of the bad feelings. And I would sit there and I would try to make myself feel better. I would try to talk myself up and be like, look, no, you can get through this, you can do this, you're good at this, you're good at that, like, you can overcome this, you're strong. But then you would just get thrown at you so much more negativity, and the bad outweighed the good. And I just felt completely numb and just weak, and I felt like I couldn't cope with it anymore. And I felt like in order to get rid of all of these bad feelings, I needed to commit suicide. And literally about half an hour before I did, I was laughing, and I was with my family, and we went for a meal, and we were just like hanging out and laughing, and, you know, like, half an hour later after that happened, my family were literally like, she was fine half an hour ago. Like, what happened? How did it get there? And it's not like it's a spur of the moment, like, oh, this just made me feel bad, so I'm going to do this. It's not the case. It's a multitude of feelings and experiences that have just been mounting up for such a period of time, and then it can be the smallest trigger that just pushes you over the edge and makes you feel like you can't breathe and like you need to end it all. So I don't like it when people are like, they couldn't have committed suicide because they looked happy or they always seemed fine. And mental health, especially depression, doesn't have a face. Okay, there is depression and anxiety affect people completely differently. You can look fine, you can act fine, you can act happy, but you can be going through so much inside, and you can literally be battling so hard while still having a smile on your face. So I just want us to all remember that mental health doesn't have a face. So that is why I don't agree with that like theory. The reason why I don't think Elaine committed suicide is that her body has never been found. There's never been any kind of trace of her, and I just feel like, again, I don't want to speculate, and I don't want to I am speculating. I don't want to be too presumptuous, and I don't want to just sit here and be like, presuming everyone's suicidal situations, because they are different for everyone. However, just from my experience and experiences that I know, I do personally feel like if you wanted to end it, you wouldn't think too much about where you are, or you wouldn't try to keep it like this huge secret. You might do it at home on your own or in a fairly secluded area, but you wouldn't make it so it's so secluded that no one has found you for 4 years. That to me just is very unusual. I'm not saying that it's not a possibility, because it very much could be, but I don't personally think that that is the case. So the second theory, which is probably the most believed, is that Elaine's ex-boyfriend had something to do with it. Obviously, he was the last person to see her. They did seem to have a very tumultuous, toxic relationship. I'm not saying that all toxic relationships end in murder, but it does certainly make him a bit more suspicious than anyone else, especially that he was the last person to see her. And the last time she was seen was outside of his house, and we can't actually see or tell who was driving that car. And then it was strange that obviously her car was then abandoned. And the way that the police handled it as well, a lot of people have speculated that because her ex-boyfriend had a dad who was a very important person and may have known people in high places and may have had some ties with the local law enforcement, he may have been able to play a bit of a puppet master and manipulate the situation. I'm not saying that's what happened. Don't come and get me. But it's a possibility, and that's what a lot of people do speculate. There is another there are a lot of theories, but they are the two main ones, but I'll go through the next one as well, is that she was subject to human trafficking, which I think if you're into true crime, you may have heard that a lot of people have been picked up along highways because they tend to be the best, most ideal places to pick people up, because obviously you can, it's a highway, you can literally pick someone up and you can just drive and drive and drive for miles. So, and obviously you can just drive into another state, and it seems to be the most easier and the most common way to pick someone up, to kidnap someone, and to, human traffic them, if that's the right terminology. So yeah, they are the main theories. If you guys have any other kind of theories that you think may have happened, then please let me know. If you have looked into this case quite a lot, then let me know if I've missed anything out. Obviously I couldn't really find too much information, but yeah, there doesn't really seem to be that much information out there. Now I'll just get on to describing Elaine's appearance so that you know who to look out for. So you can be on the lookout and we can try to get Elaine home, because that is the most important thing. Her family needs closure. Her mother, her father, they need to know where their daughter is, if she's alive or not. Because I cannot imagine as a parent just not knowing where your child is, and I just wouldn't be able to sleep. And I just feel so sorry for her family. So I'm going to read it off of my laptop just so that I get all of the information correct. So Elaine Park is Asian female, Korean American, born on September the 24th, 1996. She has brown hair and brown eyes and stands at 5'5" tall and weighs 125 pounds. She has multiple tattoos. She has a dagger and flowers on her right arm, a rose on her left shoulder, a cow skull and a moth on her left arm. Her ears and nose are pierced, and at the time of her disappearance, her hair was waist length and it had blonde tips. She was last known to be wearing a white t-shirt and denim shorts. And all of the information, all of the numbers and everything else that you can contact if you do have any kind of valid information. Any kind of information is so important. You can contact anonymously. So if you do have any kind of information, please, please, please do so. We need to bring Elaine home. Her family need to know what happened to their daughter. So if anyone does know any kind of information, please contact any of the numbers and websites that I will put down in a description box. So that is all I have for you for this case. Hopefully I will be uploading again in a couple of days, and I will see you guys in the next video. So stay safe, stay spooky. Bye guys.